Hey, I'm Steven, and I'm here to talk about what do you do as a STEM student. A lot of us, can we get a raise of hands again for everyone in STEM? A lot of us are going into quite a scary world of kind of hopelessness. What do we do? Can we actually do something? Can we not kill people and still use our skills and do the things that we love? I'm Steven. I run an NGO here to help public defenders, and I run a company in the UK to help the NHS.
I'm Abby. I'm a graduate student in the EECS department. I'm also a TA. I've been a TA under Peyrin, and I've been a TA for many, many different courses, including the ethics courses, as well as introductory CS courses. I will take over after Steven and talk about what not to do in STEM, but first I'll let Steven talk about. Okay, so as STEM students, we come to this university, we pitch to UC Berkeley in our applications how we're going to change the world, how we're going to make the world a better place. And then we do not learn how to do so in our classes. In fact, we learn the opposite. We learn that tech and STEM is fundamentally separable from any part of human society. We do not talk about human society in our classes. We talk about programming languages, we talk about compilers, we talk about how to make artificial intelligence, we talk about the next innovations that are happening in technology, but never do we speak about how these innovations will affect people like us. We do not talk about what is happening in Palestine. We do not talk about what is happening at the southern border. We do not talk about any of these issues because to do so would shatter our belief that technology is abstract, that it is unbiased, that it is neutral. And that is not true, but we teach students that that is true. We let them believe it because we do not make space for difficult conversations. And when someone does make space, when someone like Peyrin breaches this unofficial abstraction barrier and talks about how technology is impactful, technology is socio-technical, technology harms. Technology has the power for good, but it also has the power to do harm to other people and to other civilizations. When someone breaks this abstraction barrier, they are punished. Peyrin has now been suspended without pay for 6 months because he had the audacity to speak about this in his own free time using his First Amendment rights. And so when we think about STEM, when we think about what not to do in STEM, we need to understand that refusal is a fundamentally powerful concept. When we think about what to refuse, when we think about what we're going to say no to, this is powerful. This gives us power as individuals, as STEM students, as people whose labor will contribute to the society and to human futures. And so I have a short list of things we may want to refuse. So for one, we will not be complicit. We will not accept the explanation that STEM is abstract. We will not accept the explanation that STEM is neutral. We will not be STEM students and refuse to listen to what is happening in society. So we will not be complicit. We will not hide from difficult conversations. We will not deny the truth that STEM and STEM technologies and STEM innovations can be harmful to society. We will not hide from conversations about where technologies appear in our lives and in the news. We will not continue to create a hostile environment in STEM. We will not betray, ignore, or undermine our peers. And as a STEM student, this is very real. STEM can be a very aggressive place to be as an underrepresented minority, as a woman, as a gender minority, as someone who may come from backgrounds where STEM or technology is harming your communities. We often in STEM dismiss these conversations, belittle others. It can be a very hostile environment sometimes. It makes it very hard for people to want to pursue STEM. It makes it very hard for people to want to make a difference in STEM. We frequently see many people in STEM majors leaving the major because it is hostile. And we need to open ourselves up to conversations with our peers, to thinking about how we can make a difference. How can we be more hopeful? How can we be more kind, more welcoming to people who we may not traditionally speak up in these classrooms? We will not, as the UC and as students, continue to allow investment in weapons manufacturing. We will not sit by as our tuition money, as our efforts, as our labor goes to weapons manufacturing. We will not punish lecturers and staff and students for speaking up against this. And we will also work collectively towards a better future. If we want to believe that change is possible, we need to open ourselves up to this possibility. We need to begin to imagine what this can look like. What does it look like when we begin to believe that we as STEM students can actually make a difference? That we as STEM students have the power to refuse our labor going to certain systems. We do not have to believe UC Berkeley's narrative that we must work as software engineers after graduation, that we must make a 6-figure salary, that we must join weapons manufacturing or contract with weapons manufacturing in order to make a living. This is not the truth. This is a narrative that UC Berkeley pushes on you because they believe that that is the pathway to success. But this is not inherently true. There are other pathways. There are other ways to use your STEM degree, to use the skills that you have learned, and you have to begin to imagine what is possible. What is possible with your hopes and dreams and the knowledge that you have learned at this university, at this institution. Take advantage of the institution. Take advantage of the classes it offers you. Although this university tries to beat you down again and again and tries to dismiss you and tries to quiet you and tries to undermine you, think about what you can take from this university. What knowledge do you have? What lessons have you learned that you can use for good, that you can use for collective action? It begins by talking to others. It begins by talking to others in your classes, by imagining what you can do, what is possible. We cannot work towards a better world if we don't first begin to imagine what a better world looks like. And we need to work together with each other to work towards that better world, to work towards that collective. Okay, so that is my rant. That is some of my thoughts, and I will now pass this off to Stephen to talk about some other futuring ideas.
I first want to apologize. I might be a bit slow. I'm on a starvation diet for a cause I believe in. But I want to harp on Abby's message and also the message that was talked about by the rest of the tech workers here, and say the kind of first step that you need to have is to start to repoliticize this space. Politics comes from the kind of Greek word of polis. A polis is just a person in a social environment. And to be a social person is the first directive. You need to understand the environment you live in, respect everyone else around you, and cultivate an environment where you can progress that society forward. And like the social aspect of this is really crucial. We are all here today to learn about topics that we are passionate about, that we think are very important. And we should be able to continue these conversations afterwards. And with our STEM degrees, there's a great quote by this German philosopher. The philosophers of the world have only tried to understand the world. The point is to change it. And with our STEM degrees, we actually can change it. We are interfacing with the material world every single day. We have, like, what I feel like I do every day feels like superpowers. It feels magical sometimes. What you can do with just the basic knowledge of science and kind of processing the world through that lens and moving forward. There's this book, which is Technology for Good. I think it's a pretty shit book, but there's some good takes from it. So moving forward, you don't have to work at Google, you don't have to work at Amazon. I think it's certainly important for some people to go and work there and to try and change the culture, as our friends over there have tried to do, but it's a very uphill battle. So the first thing to do is to kill the dinosaurs. Google and Amazon and the rest of them, they do a series of products. These are replicable products. They're not very ingenious products. And if you want to run a cloud service, you can run a cloud service. If you want to run a search engine, you can learn how to make a search engine. It's difficult, but it's not that hard to do. And you can probably learn from the lessons of these people and try and make a better product, a more equitable product. The thing that I've chosen to do is help people on the front lines. So I work in law and in health. For public defenders, I try and help public defenders better organize their kind of legal catalogs and advise them on medical support, on legal support for how to integrate AI into these things. But around the world, people have been innovating with tech in the legal space. Specifically in Northern Europe, there's some incredible innovations with the use of blockchain to kind of standardize and remove corruption for all legal records, predictive analysis of kind of the criminal justice system so they can have more lawyers or more public defenders at certain times and other things, just making the system run better for the people. The next one is using data to actually do things, which there's a lot that you can do with data. I'm running healthcare studies, a lot of them, to just see how can we look at the different population trends to predict which populations need more support. Is there an underlying cause for that? This is all things that we can do with the data science schools that we're learning right now. And if you're in more of a kind of engineering degree, there's so many tools that need to be built right now. There's better, for me just speaking, there's much better healthcare devices that are needed and much cheaper ones that are needed. I think you can probably build that a lot cheaper if you think about it a lot with a bunch of friends, which is kind of what I'm doing as well. And the most important one is the power of open source. I've been an open source developer since the age of like 13, and it's truly a magical space to be in. Just the thought that I'm not a very arrogant person. I think I've released something quite cool. Let me show everyone else. If everyone else thinks it's shit, they can just contribute it, and we build this magical product together. The internet right now runs off of open source technology. We would not have any kind of software, and my software engineers over there, would you agree?
Yeah.
A definitive yes.
Yeah.
And I encourage you, every single field of science has an open source project that you can work on. In computer science, there's so many, but in biology right now, there's so many open source biology projects that are working. There's a couple in Oakland, there's makerspaces. I think get involved with these places and you can actually try and do something really, really cool. And now we're going to open it up for Q&A. Is there anyone else who has questions about what to do in STEM or in general with your degree?
Thoughts on working in like all of these new AI startups compared to kind of the bigger companies? Because I feel like there's still some ethical issues there, but I also feel like kind of compared to.
The question was thoughts on working in AI companies and AI startups versus these kind of more legacy companies and bigger companies. I think a lot of the AI startups coming out of Silicon Valley and this university are quite bullshit a lot of the time. There's a massive run of VC money that is just pumping just essentially shit, put millions of dollars into shit. But there's a couple gems that will shine through, and there's a couple of really cool companies that are doing very interesting things with AI. I think starting your own company is a very interesting move, or starting your own NGO is a very interesting move, or going on to one that's honestly disrupting these old legacy systems and trying to help the world in a better way. But there's so many other companies than just the big ones and the new ones that have been doing these things for ages, and I recommend you look whatever discipline that you're in into what companies are actually doing that. And there'll be other people out there, like what our friend over there said, that there's government agents everywhere, but there's also insurgents everywhere. There's so many insurgents out there and people who are already organized, and I think contributing into those or starting something yourself is a very, very good idea for the future.
Okay, a few thoughts. So, one, I can't tell anyone to not work in tech, because to say that is itself a very privileged position to have. Like, it is very hard to make a living wage under capitalism. It is very hard to survive under capitalism. And so I'm not here to tell you which AI companies or which legacy tech companies are good to work at or which ones are bad to work at. I think it's more you need to decide for yourself what is okay and what is not okay. What are the boundaries that you have for yourself? Part of activism is holding boundaries for yourself and keeping yourself okay, keeping yourself in a good mental state. What does it look like to you to be a good person? And that's very broad. That is a very big question. But what does it look like to you to live a good life? What are the boundaries that you will not cross? So for me, when I would intern at tech companies, one of the first things I would do is I would get into the Slack and I would Command-Shift-F every single defense company I knew of, because a lot of companies don't publicize their contracts. It can be very hard. So I would dig through the Slack space and try to figure out what companies there were, because for me that was a hard line. Like, I do not want to work at a company that contracts with Palantir. That is my personal take. So you need to figure out what those boundaries are for yourself and do the best you can to uphold them. The boundary doesn't have to be, I will never work in tech at all, because working in tech is not an inherently evil thing. There is tech for good. There are people who are using tech for the collective good, for imagining a better future, for trying to make a difference. And so it's really up to you what those boundaries are and what you want to work for. So that's maybe not a perfect answer. I can't tell you what AI startups are good and which ones are not. But I can tell you to listen to your gut and figure out what is okay with you, what will sit right in your soul and what won't sit right in your soul, and work towards that.
I think also a general litmus test for if an AI company is good is like, are they actually doing anything? And really asking that question, and most of them aren't, but some of them are. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
And with that, we have reached the end of our programming. Thank you guys so much for spending your Dead Week with us, for coming out and for being community with us, learning with us, and showing that we will not be threatened or scared into silence, and we'll continue fighting the good fight. So one last time, free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Intifada, intifada!
Intifada, intifada!
Long live the intifada!
Long live the intifada!
Intifada, intifada!
Intifada, intifada!
Long live the intifada!
Long live the intifada!
Once more for good measure. Whose university?
Our university!
Whose university?
Our university!
Whose university?
Our university!
Thank you all so much for coming, and we hope to see you next semester, next week, next action, next event, over and over again until total liberation.